Honeybees are dying off at an alarming rate, and that could have a huge impact on agriculture as well as our food supply.
Here in our state, 47% of bee colonies died in the past year. As WNCN's Sbraccia found out, researchers are scrambling to figure out why, but there's no central cause.
That's why they all should be like that right there.
But when you dive into some hives, you find trouble. Worker bees are missing. Nurse bees are eating stored honey to stay alive instead of feeding it to the young, and queens aren't laying eggs to reproduce.
Last year I started losing hives, and I could not figure out why.
In beekeeper David Massengill's case, it was due to pesticide contamination from a cucumber patch where he had placed his bees for pollination services.
I lost a third of the bees due to the cucumbers before I called them over there, and found out that that was what the problem was.
It was due to a type of nicotine-based pesticide known generically as neonicotinoids. Seeds are coated with that pesticide, which eventually transfer to the plant and pollen to protect it from insects. But labels warn it's highly toxic to bees.
It's in their system. They don't know their way back. They lose memory and everything, so basically they die in the field.
In David's case, he caught it early.
I pulled the hives off and brought them back home and started nursing them back, and they started coming back slowly a little bit.
For smaller beekeepers like David, keeping an eye on a hive like this is fairly easy, but for larger beekeepers, it becomes problematic.
These people that's running 500, 600, 700, these transfer trucks, there's no possible way they can do that, I mean, as far as time-wise.
But pesticides are only a small part of what's destroying bee colonies.
46.1% of the hives in North Carolina died off last year.
Some of that die-off is due to something called colony collapse disorder, where all the bees abandon the hive, leaving the babies to die.
This hive right here has two large boxes you can see down here.
Back in 2006, we talked with Professor David Tarpey about research which was just starting on colony collapse disorder. Nearly a decade later, he and his team are still at it.
There have been about 75 or so individual things that have been tested to see if that is the cause of colony collapse disorder, and no one single factor has emerged as the smoking gun.
Finding an answer, he says, is like finding a cure for cancer. It's complex. But disappearing bees aren't the only issue. Beekeepers report queens are dying mysteriously.
They're supposed to live 2 or 3 years. Beekeepers are having a hard time having them live for more than 1 year.
Dr. Tarpey's researchers are trying to figure out why, because bees are essential to our food supply.
1 out of every 3 bites of food that we eat is provided by bees in general.
Bees pollinate about $20 million worth of crops a year here in North Carolina. Nationally, it's about $20 billion.
It really came together fast from there.
The bee die-off has caught the attention of the White House, where the president created a task force to develop a national strategy to promote the health of honeybees and other pollinators.
I'm ecstatic, but I'm also holding my breath because we all know that it's Congress that holds the purse strings.
They're building their own comb. As
beekeeper David Massengill says, our lives really depend on it.
Once we destroy them bees, we've destroyed ourselves, because we ain't going to have a food supply for us to eat.
I'm Steve Sbraccia, WNCN News.
Well, there you have it.